there were times I was wearing 2 elbow sleeves just to bench.
Wow.
That's how crazy it was. It was like I had to put a smaller sleeve on and put another one on so that it's so tight in order to do a tricep exercise or to do a shoulder press or to do a chest press, so I could have a little bit of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And today, after Clay had hooked me up, it was like the first set I was like, okay, I can still feel it. And by the second set, I was doing it without even thinking, oh, you need to make that adjustment where there's no pain on the joint.
I'm Garrett Salpeter, and I believe that the most powerful and transformative way to help people recover from pain and injury, heal from trauma, and reach their highest levels of fitness and performance is to focus on the nervous system. In this podcast, we'll share knowledge from the frontiers of neuroscience and inspirational stories of how applying that knowledge has empowered people from all walks of life to heal, adapt, and grow. Welcome to a very special episode of the Undercurrent Podcast. I'm joined here at the NeuFit home office in Austin with Shawn Rhoden, 2018 Mr. Olympia champion. And in this episode, we talk about the mindset of an elite champion bodybuilder. And it's amazing for Shawn to share with us what he goes through in order to compete at that level. And even if you're not a bodybuilder, I think you'll understand the principles of excellence and mastery and discipline and treating it like a job rather than a hobby. I think you'll understand how those can extrapolate and can serve you amazingly well in many areas of your life. We'll also talk about Shawn's experience with the Neubie, how he initially was skeptical when Brad Rowe introduced him to it, and how eventually Brad won him over and he started using it in his training. And then we'll talk about how he's been using it not only in training, but to recover from an old injury and restore function in his hand and how he plans to use it going forward. And it's a fabulous episode. I'm really excited to share it with you now.
You know, this sport, man, it's unlike any other sport that you will ever encounter. I mean, I was a soccer player and a swimmer before I started bodybuilding, and I basically started bodybuilding because my cousin literally dragged me into bodybuilding because he wanted me to be stronger going from swimming to soccer. And I was a really good soccer player that I thought that one day I was gonna, end up in somewhere in Europe playing soccer. So it was a big deal for me. But once I got into bodybuilding, there's a certain, again, passion that you develop from the sport. Like, you don't start this sport going, like football players and basketball players have the luxury of saying, hey, one day I'm going to sign a $100 million contract. With bodybuilding, it's just driven by passion. Day in, day out, what you put in, you get out of it. And, once you lost that drive and that passion, I tell people to quit. Because then you just go into the motion. And I travel around the world and I tell people that when they ask me, when they tell me, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder, my first response is why? And I think for a lot of people, they see, you're traveling around the world and they think it's all like glamorous and yeah, it's fun. I mean, without bodybuilding, I would have never been to some of the countries I've been to. But it's a lot of hard work. It's hard work, 365, 24/7, day in, day out, rain out, snow out, 110 degrees. You still got to get up with the mental mindset of, let's do this. It becomes a part of your daily lifestyle. Like most people say this, that just work out. Man, I got to find time to go to the gym today. As a bodybuilder, you're like, I'm working out at 1 o'clock. I'm working out at 2 o'clock. It doesn't matter what's going on. There is a time that you're going to the gym. Most people, I don't know, my day kind of slipped away and I couldn't go to the gym. My bodybuilder's like, it's midnight, I'm going to the gym. I remember traveling with, good example, I remember traveling with Ronnie Coleman and we're doing a tour in Australia. And this is the first time, the eighth wonder of the world, 800-pound gorilla. And we got off a flight probably around 1 o'clock in the morning in Sydney. I'm dead tired, and Ronnie's on the phone going, okay, we'll be there in 5 minutes. And I'm thinking, where in 5 minutes? The hotel is 5 minutes? Still have the luggage in the car, and we pull up at the gym. I'm like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. But that's his mental mindset. Even though he was retired, he still has that mentality that we're going to train. We didn't train today. We just got off a flight. We're going to the gym to train. And if you don't have that mentality, being a bodybuilder or trying to be a top bodybuilder, it's not going to work, because it's not a part-time job that you punch in at 9, you leave at 5. You take the weekend off. It's something that we do 24/7, and you have to have that drive all the time, no matter what's going on.
So if it takes love and passion to do it, where does that come from for you? What keeps you doing it day in and day out, 365 days a year, year over year?
I love what I do. Mm-hmm. We are what we do, and I'm a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. It's my sanctuary, it's my therapy, it's whatever you want to call it. It's that for me. From the day I started lifting, I just have this passion for it. And it's like falling in love with iron. It's like that you go into the gym, and for me, it's getting the satisfaction of whether it's a long day and you're able to release your stress, or just to be able to forget everything outside the door of the gym, and you go and you go, this is my playground. This is what I do. I get that out of it every single day, no matter what's going on. Some days I crawl in the gym and I walk out. Wow, that was great. I needed that. And that's something that I don't take for granted. During the pandemic, I was happy that I had friends that had gyms that were open, because I would have probably lost my mind, and not being able just to go, I was training maybe 4 days a week, but it was 4 days of going in and go, man, that was great. You hear about a lot of people, with, going through mental issues, especially during that time. And for me, it was just wow, thank God, I had good friends, that allow me to, use their facility. But I love it. I've loved it since day one, to the point where I gave up on a dream of being a soccer player to see where bodybuilding was going to take me. Mm-hmm. And that was a big thing, because I remember when I said to my parents, I'm thinking about being a bodybuilder. I'm from Jamaica, it's an island. We don't have bodybuilding. We have soccer and track and cricket. That's our 3 sport. So you imagine I'm living in the States now, and I'm like, hey, I think I want to be a bodybuilder. I'm 17 years old. And they're looking at me like, oh, what? It's like a bodybuilder. But I had their blessing to go. They were like, hey, listen, if this is what you want to do, go for it. And I was thankful for that, because I have a lot of people that, would not have had the same response. Mm-hmm. And I just run with it, and been in love with it ever since.
That's awesome. So you have that passion, and I really appreciate that. Not only that you need that passion to go through it, because if it's about something external, you probably won't push through all the challenging periods and the discipline that it takes.
I would have probably given up. Just the fact that you looked at, it's self-endured torture to begin with. Nobody's holding a gun to your head, but you're consuming a large amount of food every day. Just off season of eating out of control, and in contest prep mode, it's people asking you, are you okay? Because they see your body go through this metamorphosis where they don't understand, is he eating enough? Is he sick? And for you, you're like, I look great. You're tired, you're dragging, and you're like, I might look like crap, I might feel like crap, but man, I love this. And, you're not signing that $100 million check to do it, but you get up every morning going, man, you know what? I got 6 weeks before the show. Like, I got to get in the best shape of my life just to turn around and eat it away in one day, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard to understand that, but again, it's the love that you have for the sport that's going to drive you when the lights are off and, you know, nobody's cheering and you're no longer competing. You're still, I mean, I could see myself 70 years old getting up to go to the gym just to go to the gym. You know, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm probably on my treadmill walking at 1.0 just just to get a little bit of cardio in, and probably standing there with my 5-pound dumbbell, you know, try to get a pump just because, you know, I love it. And I know the state of mind that he put me in, you know. I talk a lot about mental mindset, and the gym does that to you. It, you know, keep you in a positive flow consistently.
You have something to strive for, an action you can take every day to help you get there. So where do you fall in this? I love how you speak about high-level bodybuilding as you have to obviously prioritize it. You have to be a professional. You have to treat it as a job rather than a hobby. The part of that, sometimes people go down that road of, you know what, I'm going to train myself into the ground and, you know, end up, you know, ultimately injuring themselves and going too far in that direction. So how do you treat it as a professional in the sense of not only, you know, going to the gym and doing it disciplined even when you don't want to, but doing it in the right amount, balancing that. Obviously, you're not doing too little, like the person who doesn't even make it to the gym, but also balancing that you know, not doing too much either. How do you strike that balance, and how has that evolved for you over the span of your career?
I'm very thankful, and I say this like very, very thankful, that when I decided I was going to get serious with bodybuilding, that I had a few people in my surrounding that was doing it for a period of time. That one of the first thing that they taught me was, one, you have to be coachable, and two, you check your ego at the door. And there's a lot of guys that goes to the gym and one day ego lift. It's just a matter of going in the gym and, you know, Tony's benching 500 pounds. I got to bench 500 pounds. Me, I'm like, Tony's benching 500 pounds. I'm not Tony. You know, that's always been, you know, my mindset has always been, you know, I might have been an ego lifter when I started because I'm like, you know, you watch videos of guys like during age training and you're like, so that's what I got to do. You know, I got to beat myself in the ground. And you watch Ronnie deadlift 900 pounds and you're like, I got to deadlift 900 pounds. But at the end of the day, again, I had some really good people that were like, if you got to take a plate off, take a plate off. And I carry that on with me through my professional career, where I don't care if the guy weighs 100 pounds less than me, but he's benching 100 pounds more than me. That's what he's able to do. I'm not him. So I take a step back and I say, I mean, I have times where I'm training with people and I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I feel as if I'm fighting the weight off me instead of actually using the right muscle fibers to actually lift the weight. And I'm like, hey, can you take a plate off? And you'll get that. You sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm positive. Because I'm not benefiting from that lift. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, through all these years of being smart about how I lift instead of watching what other people are doing has helped me a lot. Plus, I think in my early years as a pro, I moved out to LA and started training under Charles Glass. And Charles is all about, hey, listen, if you're not coachable, this is not going to work. Everything that I thought I knew, I left at the front door when I walked in that door. And for me, it was like, I took myself as far as I can by myself. I want you to teach me something that I don't know. Or I want you to teach me something that I thought I knew. And I just watched, I just observed, and in a sense, do what I was told. And then relay back certain information if, hey, I'm not feeling that, or the weight is a little bit too heavy or a little bit too light. Because I know this sport is all about longevity. And you see a lot of guys, as you said, they come in and they're like right out the gate and then they disappeared. I mean, you looked at someone like Dexter Jackson who was doing it for so long, and people go, you know, how's Dexter able to maintain? I watched Dexter train and I've trained with Dexter, and there are times I'm like, is that all he's lifting? But, you know, it's longevity. He doesn't have to go in the gym and bench 500 pounds every day. It's knowing, hey, what your body is capable of doing, and the older you get, you make the necessary adjustment of, I might be Superman, but I don't have to pick up a whole building today, you know. The firefighters are here, let them kind of go to the bushes, and then I go in and do my thing. And, you know, I've been able to take notes as to what works best for me, and I realized a long time ago that I'm not Ronnie Coleman and I'm not Dorian Yates, and I got to work with what my body allows me to do. Mm-hmm. And that has prolonged me this long to be able to continue going to the gym and enjoy, you know, my workouts and, you know, knock on wood, no major injury in the gym.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that longevity for a moment here, because you've had a fascinating career. You were top 5 at the Olympia, the premier competition in bodybuilding, top 5, you know, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16 coming up, and then finally break through and win in 2018, the oldest ever to win.
I'm not that old.
Right? I know, you're not that old, but you were the oldest ever Mr. Olympia champion at 43 years of age, 2018. How did you break through? What did it for you that allowed you to win after all those years being in the top 5 and being so close?
Patience. I tell people that's the number one thing for me, was being patient. Listen, when you have all these amazing athletes that is striving to be the best of the best and competing at that level, you know what they're bringing to the table. And it's being very patient and dedicated to your craft so much that your focus is only on you. And most people lose sight of that because they get into this chase mode. And that's when you kind of fall off your game, you know. When you have someone like, you know, Phil Heath, 7 times Mr. Olympia. He's 7 times Mr. Olympia for a reason. He's great at what he does. You just have to remember to stay in your lane and focus on you, and not get into, like, for a while, you remember, you know, everybody was chasing Ronnie Coleman, and, you know, they're like, I got to get bigger to beat Ronnie Coleman. And it's like, it's not about getting bigger to beat Ronnie Coleman. Like, you have to run your race. And, you know, I've always told people at that level, it's coming in the best version of yourself and presenting the best version of yourself and hoping that someone is off. Because any year looking at the Olympia, you could be like, man, that guy could have won, you know. Man, that guy could have won. Like, the margin of victory sometimes is that much. And it's just staying in your lane and say, I'm going to bring the best package that I could bring in that day and be undeniable that day. And have that mental mindset of, I won before I even got here. 2017, I prepped for the Olympia with a broken jaw. My jaw wide shut, and a lot of people didn't know that, but it was my best prep ever. And I took 5th. But it was my best prep ever because I look back at, I was cooking my steak and my potatoes and blending it afterwards so I could consume calories. I was blending tilapia, I was blending salmon, and it was probably some of the nastiest food I've ever ate, but it was my best prep because I found out how far I could push myself and how far I'm willing to go to be Mr. Olympia while being very patient. Most people would have quit, but it's like, I'm going to run my race no matter what. And even when, I was written off for, I've always been in that top 3 group. And then finally here I am, 5th. And everybody was like, oh, he's on a decline and he's done. For me, it was like, okay, thank you. Because I know I was still running my race, and I knew there were circumstances that had me take a step back, but it was still a learning experience of saying, wow, you know what? That was the best prep. It was one hell of a battle. It was understanding how your body works, how your body functions. I had to train a little bit different, but I was training really hard, and I got beat up and battered and bruised and got thrown off a cliff, during my training, and I loved every second of it. And I was so excited, in 2018 that I just told myself that after 2017 that there's no way I wasn't going to be Mr. Olympia. And, I got laughed at because, again, you're going up against Phil Heath, Dexter Jackson, and Rolly Winkler, William Bonac, and all those guys. So people see what happened the year before, Big Ramy, and it was just like, dude, like, you got 5th. I remember someone said, you had a good run. And my response was, thank you. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not finished. And but I took all that in, and I'm like, hey, I still have a love for this sport, and I'm still driven. And I was like, I felt as if my best was yet to come, and I still feel as if my best is yet to come. And hopefully in 2022, I'll be on stage to showcase that, and it's going to be one hell of a ride.
Heck yeah. I love hearing you say this. I mean, this everything you're sharing here, I think applies across all disciplines. Someone who's listening to this may not be into bodybuilding, maybe they play a different sport, or maybe they're thinking about how to grow as a business leader or as a parent or as a person in general. I think all of these principles that you're talking about being coachable, about being disciplined, about running your own race and paying attention to what you need to do instead of competing with yourself, instead of whoever else you're trying to keep up with. I think all of these, this mindset is just fabulous.
I tell people, listen, I was one of the top guys at the Olympia, but up until 2018, like I look back after 2017, and I remember saying to Chris Aceto, I was like, man, Chris, I felt like I was going out here, I was battling, but my biggest battle was against myself every year. I knew what to expect because I knew I was competing against some of the best guys in the world. I was like, but a part of me felt like I was fighting myself. Like, the closer it gets to the show, I was fighting myself. Like, I'm trying to run my race, but it's like, but it's Phil Heath, but it's Dexter Jackson, but it's Big Ramy. Like, these guys they're gonna bring their best. Like, so I gotta bring them my all-time best in order to, stay competitive. And I think 2018, my exact words to Chris was, I don't care. And most people would take that in a negative way, but he understood when I said, I just don't care anymore. And I think that kind of sent off that little fire within him also, where I was like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. Because I freed myself and say, put your blinders on, stay in your own lane, run your race, and at the end of the day, just know that you left everything on the stage. And I did that. And I think that prep for me was, I don't think at any given point did I even check to see what anybody else was doing. Mm-hmm. It was like, I don't care. And I remember doing an interview with Dave with Mad Max for Jay Cutler TV at Gold's Gym with Jay. And I said, I just don't care anymore, Jay. I just don't give a shit. They were like, what? I was like, I don't care. I was like, I'm just gonna bring the best me. I was like, I'm gonna bring my all-time best. And I was like, one way or another, I'm leaving Vegas with the Sandow. I was like, if it means I gotta fight Phil afterwards to get it in the parking lot, I was like, I am not leaving Vegas without it. That's how determined I was, where I was like, I just don't care. I was like, there's nothing anybody could tell me that I wasn't gonna win. And I had a lot of people that laughed at me. They thought I was crazy. Like, you took fifth last year, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I just don't care anymore. I was like, I've freed myself, I let myself go, and of any and everything that I thought was holding me back. And I was like, my mindset right now is I am going to take myself to the edge of death, if that's what it's going to take. But I don't care. I'm going to do whatever it takes and any and everything that it takes to be Mr. Olympia. And I had that mental mindset every single day. I went to the gym. Like, it was a conversation I had with Jay Cutler in 2012 when he says, before I could be Mr. Olympia, I have to start acting like Mr. Olympia, walking like Mr. Olympia, talking like Mr. Olympia. I have to believe I was Mr. Olympia. And I think, that moment in 2018, I was like, I'm Mr. Olympia. There's nothing anybody could tell me. Like, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia. I am Mr. Olympia. And I just, freed myself of every thought that could have ever put a drop of doubt, because even at that level, sometimes doubt creep into your mind, and it might not be in the forefront of your mind, but it's on the back burner, because you're like, here we go again. And you hear that a lot, especially the Buzz Olympia week is, oh, here we go again. Phil's going to be number 8. He's going to win number 8, And for me, I was just like, I don't care. Like, there's no way he's leaving here with the Sandow. I was like, fighting in the parking lot or whatever, but, and just carry that over every day into my training regimen, into my eating regimen, into my sleeping regimen, into my posing regimen. Like, everything that I did was, I am Mr. Olympia.
Have you picked up your copy of the NeuFit method yet? In this book, Garrett helps you reconnect with the nervous system and improve outcomes at every stage of rehab and fitness. Based on Garrett's proprietary NeuFit methodology and Neubie technology, the solutions in this book will introduce you to a framework for overcoming virtually any physiological challenge. Take the first step in enhancing recovery, boosting performance, and optimizing health in ways you never thought possible. Now available on Amazon in hardback, paperback, or Kindle. And now, back to the show.
So on that's awesome. I mean, the mindset, I love that. Anyone who wants to achieve mastery in any discipline, bodybuilding, medicine, any other sport, business, I mean, that path of mastery of constantly pushing yourself to be the best version of yourself, checking your ego at the door, seeing where you can learn and improve. I love that. In order to help our listeners, especially those that aren't as familiar with bodybuilding, to understand what that discipline means, can you just give everyone a high-level overview of, when you talk about your sleeping and your eating in your gym, how many meals are you eating a day? How much time are you spending in the gym? What's your sleeping routine like? What is that, just at a high level, what is that day in and day out job like?
So I'm going to tell guys, that last 7 weeks of getting ready for the Olympia, because this is the easiest way I could explain it to you guys. That last 7 weeks for me in 2018, I'm eating 7 meals a day, but I'm only having 25 grams of carbs per day.
Do the math on that one.
I'm eating about a pound of fish per meal. My last meal consists of 14 ounces of steak with asparagus or spinach.
How many of those 7 meals are you actually hungry versus how many do you feel like you have to choke them down?
Starving. You get to a point where your body becomes a furnace where I would have my first meal, and before I finish my first meal, I'm thinking, man, I can't wait to eat my second meal. I would have my second meal, and I'm like, when do I eat again? Like, what time is it? And I'm talking, imagine you doing 8 ounces of tilapia, 8 ounces of salmon with some asparagus, and then you're sitting there going, I would have to take naps in between meals so I don't think about food. I would literally fall asleep and chugging 3 gallons of water a day just to stay full, because I'm so hungry, and I'm training twice a day for an hour and a half. I'm doing 2-hour cardio, 1-hour posing session.
It is a full-time job.
It's a full-time job, and I'm trying to take naps in between meals, and it's hard, and then I'm getting about 6 hours of sleep a night, but I make up the additional sleep time from naps throughout the day in between meals. And it's brutal because it's 24/7. Every day you wake up and it's the same thing. Like, you're eating every day at the same time. You train every day at the same time. It's like flipping through a book and nothing changes. It's the same image you're looking at every single day, 7 days a week. But that's what it takes. It takes having that discipline every day to say, is it Sunday or Tuesday? Because it's the same routine. Like, you don't know. Mm-hmm. And doing that over and over and over and over. And the result is the same. Like, I'm starving, I'm hungry. It's, are you making a sacrifice, or are you the sacrifice? And that's a question that I tell everyone, that when you get to that level, you have to ask yourself, like, is the sacrifice worth the reward? Like, are you the sacrifice, or are you being sacrificed? And sometimes there's no answer. But you get up the next day and you go, okay, let's do this again, and you know what the result is going to be. You know what the short-term result and the long-term result is going to be. For me, is looking at the long-term goal is, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia. I might feel like that today, but hey, you know what? In 7 weeks, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia. And that is repeat in the back of your mind every single day, every single minute, every second of the day. Like, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to be the best at what I do. I want to be the best at my craft. And without even thinking about it, you just continue to do it every single day.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's good especially for people who aren't familiar with bodybuilding, to be able to peek behind the curtain and see what it takes eating, training wise. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's if you haven't done it, it's almost impossible to comprehend.
Like, people watch from the outside and they see the finished product, and they go, man, he looks great, but they never understand the sacrifice to get there. They don't understand the grind to get there. I was driving from Santa Barbara to Gold's Gym in LA every single day. And it's 2-hour drive, 2.5 hours sometimes. There were days driving back, I was so tired, I would pull over at a gas station to take a nap. But I'm like, hey, this was the best gym for me to train at. This is the best environment for me to be in. And in order for me to be the best at what I do, I can't go to the local YMCA and go, I'm motivated to be here. You got to be in a surrounding that, you walk into Gold's Gym and you see all of Mr. Olympias on the wall. You walk in the back and you see all the greats that ever trained here, and just the atmosphere of saying, man, this is where Arnold trained. This is, you see Frank Zane, Serge Olivier, you see across the room Dexter Jackson, and you're like, oh, man, okay, I know why I'm here. And you're motivated, you're inspired. Like, so for me, those days of sitting in traffic, like falling asleep, going, man, I just need to make it home. Like, I just need to make it home to get up the next day and go, I just need to make it to the gym. I just need to make it to the gym. And, it's a 2.5 hour drive just to go train for an hour and a half, to turn back around and sit in traffic to drive back home. It's hard, but it's like anything else, in life, whether it's being a bodybuilder or being in another sport or owning your own business, is you're going to have to put some time in. You're going to have to make some sacrifice. You're going to have to roll your sleeve up and say, I got to do this, or let's do this. And it's part of the sacrifice of being successful at what you do. And not everybody's willing to go that extra mile sometimes. They're like, man, it's just way too hard. It's just way too much. And they tap out. Especially, I always say it's that last 5% that gets you. It's that last 5% when you're like, this is just way too hard. Like, I had a friend that once, called me up and he says, man, so do you ever just give yourself a cheat meal? I'm like, what do you mean? Do you ever just have like an extra tablespoon of peanut butter? And I'm like, why? You're so close and you're willing to self-sabotage yourself for something that is not going anywhere. It's like, when I'm dieting, I go to the grocery store, I walk down the aisle with all the baked goods. I walk down the aisles with the Twinkies and the Little Debbies, and I'm like, my face is up against the glass looking at the cakes and the donuts and the muffin, and people go, why do you do that to yourself? I was like, you know why? They were here on Wednesday, they're here on Friday, or they'll be here on Monday. I'm just reminding myself that they go in nowhere, so there's no reason for me to walk in and go, hey, one donut is not going to hurt. Yes, it's going to hurt. You know why? Because the show's going to be over, and I can come in here and have all the donuts I want. So I just constantly remind myself when I go to the grocery store, I go to that section first and I take my time, like, oh, you guys are still here, and I'll see you guys next month, or I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I'm happy. Most people can't do that because they don't have the self-control. They walk in and they're like, I'll just do extra 30 minutes cardio. Yeah. Like, why would you put yourself in that position for extra 30-minute cardio when you don't have to? In a couple of weeks, the show's going to be over. You can come in here and sit in the aisle and eat as much as you want. But it's the mental mindset. Most people, that last 5%, they just, they see the light at the end of the tunnel, but they're like, I just can't do it. Me, I'm just like, I'm walking through that tunnel. And when I get on the other side, we're going to have a party.
That's the equivalent of the best quarterbacks in the world spending an extra half hour reviewing game tape and studying the playbook. That's the equivalent of any time that, staying and studying to be a better student and do better on the test. It just, the people who are willing to give that little extra
5%.
When the margin of victory is so small, that adds up.
Because our sport is dieting for 16, 20 weeks to bring the best version of yourself, and then you're being judged. Someone else is judging you. Not if you squat 500 pounds, not if you deadlift 800 pounds, not if you bench, whatever. Your hard work and your sacrifice is then being someone sitting there going, I don't like his haircut. Your hard work is
that why you shave your head?
Is, man, he should be a little bit drier. And you're like, what do you mean a little bit drier? So it's leaving no stone unturned. It's being undeniable. When I walk off stage, I leave everything on stage. I don't care what happened. People are like, how can you do that? I'm like, because I did the best I could have done for that show. I looked the best I could have looked for that show. So when that show is over, I can't go back and go, man, had I eat a little bit more carbs, the result is not going to change. The show's over. So I walk off stage, I looked at Chris, I go, what's my next meal? And people find that very hard, that how can you not talk about what just happened? I was like, the show's over. It doesn't matter how much I yell and scream or what's not, the result is still going to be the same. So I chose not to dwell on it. I chose to close that door and move on to, hey, I have another show next week. how can it be better by next week? It's having that mental mindset of being a quarterback. You just throw an interception. You don't go back to the bench and go, man, I can't believe I threw that interception. Man, I just lost the game. No, the game is still going on. Like, you pick up the playbook and you look at the film and you said, okay, you know what? It's double coverage. I'm going to throw it in the slot. And you get ready for the next play. You don't sit there and dwell on what just happened. You got to be able to flip the switch and says, okay, you know what? So I made a bad throw. That's me when I walk off stage onto the next show.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that mindset, and I can see how that, your approach, how you do everything, you're going about things the right way. It's just beautiful to listen to. I want to play this back and listen to it here. Let's shift now for a little bit and talk about your experience with the Neubie. And you first, I know, got to experience this with our mutual friend Brad Rowe.
The electrician.
That's right, out in LA. In order to set the stage for some of that.
I wasn't a believer at first. Brad will tell you. It took him a couple of tries of saying, hey, let me just one time. I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a creature of habit. I'm old school.
Well, yeah, tell us about that. Let's go there first then. How did he finally win you over? Tell us about that intro and those first few times trying it out.
So I see Brad pushing this cart around the gym, at first nobody knew what was going on. They just see Brad with this cart every day, comes in the gym, and we all just kind of like, okay. And he's trying to sell you in the machine. He's like, man, he could change your workout, so much. And of course I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, yeah, no problem. Just try it once. Well, okay, maybe next week, And I kept every week. It was like, hey, maybe next week, maybe next week. But I'm an observer, and I'm watching Brad's body changes. And I'm like, maybe there's something to this machine. Like, okay, like his physique is just, he's hooked up to this machine and he's doing cardio, he's doing everything. Like, you don't see Brad without the machine. Like, he's on the elliptical and, machine is strapped to him. He's training but I noticed that there's a different look to his body. There's a different look. Like, he would post a couple of pictures of his back, and I was just like, wow, like, okay. I know he trains very hard all the time. I was like, but this was like a whole different look. So he says, hey, listen, no, I approach him and I say, hey, do you have time? I want to try it in my arms. And he goes, yeah. And he was super excited. So, me and Stan was like, yeah, let's just try it one day. And I remember he came in, buys and tries, and literally I think it was like maybe like the second exercise, the second set, and I was just blown away. I was just like, I wasn't using crazy amount of weight, but I had like the biggest pump. And it was ridiculous because I was like, wow, like, it can't be the machine. And I was like, you know what, can we do legs? But we were pretty much hooked after that, because not only were challenging yourself, but the machines was challenging you. So it's like the weight that I thought I could do, but then when you hooked up to the machine, it was like, so I don't have to lift this crazy amount of weight to see the result and, get the benefit from it. So I was hooked after that. I was just like, okay, can we do back next? Can we do, it was, you want to do it, but I was still at the point where I was like, I didn't want to be hooked on it, because I was like, okay, if I'm hooked, then, I'm going to be stuck with Brad, like, all the time. Like, not a bad thing, but it was like, I'm going to want to train every day with it. So, we'll get a couple sessions in, and then I was just like, okay, this is something that I definitely want to do, because I was seeing the result, but I was getting muscle fibers involved where I was sore for like 3 days, where I was like, I remember saying, I can't raise my hand, Brad. Like what happened? And we didn't do a lot of weight. So I knew there was something else to it, that I was using, different muscles that I was never using before. And I was intrigued by that, because then I was seeing I'm all about the little details and the little result that most people look at the bigger picture. For me, it's like, okay, you know what? My arms feel like they're literally being hooked up to a pump and just blown out. But I was noticing like the little details afterwards, and the extra soreness that I never felt before, that I was just like, okay, like this is crazy. It's a great machine. Like it's flipping amazing. I think everybody should have one. Like every top athlete, and I'm not just saying this, I think every top athlete need to at least try it a couple times to get an understanding of how great it works.
I appreciate that perspective there. Let's talk about your hand and injury. So this is interesting. You started using it with Brad, training different body parts, and then this is a whole other avenue here. Can you share with everybody who's listening the backstory and what happened to your hand?
So I was in a car with a bunch of friends, car accident. My hand went through the windshield, and when I pulled my hand out, I cut 9 tendons that had to be reattached. There's 14 tendons in the hand. I happened to cut 9 that had to be reattached. So for the longest time,
And this happened at what age?
17. This happened in 1993.
Okay.
So I was just getting into bodybuilding, and it's like really just starting to enjoy lifting also. And it was a blow, because this happened in 94. And I remember I had to after 4 months of therapy, they told me that I need to start learning how to use my left hand, because I wasn't going to be able to play the piano, eat, use a hammer, pretty much anything that involved me getting a grip, I wasn't able to. And so for 2 years, I was left-handed. And going to the gym was a hassle, because I couldn't feel if I was holding the weight in this hand. I had to use a strap for everything that I do. When I was curling 5 pounds or doing a bench press, I had to make sure that I used a strap to make sure the weight was secure. And then this would swell up with fluid. I can't tell you how many times I had to get this drained, where I couldn't even get people in the gym to train with me, because everybody thought I was crazy and I was going to hurt myself. So there's a lot of people that run the other way, because they were like, they would just quit, go back to playing soccer. But I've developed such a passion for bodybuilding and lifting and I was determined to prove a lot of people wrong. I ended up actually doing a bodybuilding show 18 months after this happened, and actually won. And I was super excited about that, because again, not having the ability to grip that could hold, this part of my hand over a candle, be getting burned and wouldn't even feel it. So those were some tough times. Like even, my early years as a pro. I mean, I remember training with Charles Glass, and they had to make sure that the weight was hitting my hand, for many exercises. But it's a lot better now.
And it was like that from age 17 up until when you won Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
I mean, and you had already won Mr. Olympia by the time you used the Neubie, connected with Brad, when we started working together. So that's amazing to have overcome that. And then just only recently you've done some work on your arm,
Yeah.
and how has that started to change? What's your experience been there?
It's funny because you don't realize sometimes that the littlest movement, and today was the first time I did that hand bath.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because the more you up the intensity and just me trying to fight against it, it becomes looser and looser and looser. And for me, that's a plus because, sometimes like earlier, I couldn't do this. Like I'll be talking and my finger would be like this. I couldn't keep it straight. And just from doing that, not even an hour ago, I'm able to keep my fingers straight. I wish you guys would have seen that earlier because I was talking and the entire time it was like this. And, now from just doing this for 5 minutes, and up in the frequency and just fighting against it, I'm able to do that. And now, like, I didn't even notice that until I'm talking to you now where I'm like, wow, my fingers are straight. Just that little bit. Imagine, and I'm going to do this now, 3-4 days a week, and I'm going to keep you guys posted as far as the result of, what's happening. But every time I've been able to use the Neubie, that's what happened. Like stuff that I've never felt or not been able to notice before. I'm like, wow, that's different. Like my elbow was bugging me, and we did a couple sets, and then I completely forget about it. Whereas before I would try to baby it on a set, like I'm pushing more with one hand, and I'm doing the set, and didn't even realize it anymore because I didn't have that nagging impingement that was there. And that's just from, you being able to say, okay, you know what, this is what we're gonna do in order to, to help release that pain. Flex Lewis, be aware. A Pinto to a Ferrari.
You guys are training out of the same gym and now going to be in the same division.
This is going to be great, Flex. Love your brother.
So now that you don't have to rely on catching up with Brad and his schedule, you got your own machine. What's your plan? How do you foresee yourself using it on a regular basis here?
What I've done is this past year I don't want to say experiment. I wanted to see how far I could push my body. And there's different phases that I wanted to go through. And one of the phases was to see how big I could get with just eating, consuming a lot of food and training. My next phase now is utilizing the Neubie a lot more to bring out those muscle fibers that I wasn't able to activate with training the way I was training before. Because one thing that I remember from Brad was his back took on a whole different look from just using the Neubie. And I remember him posting a shot like before and after, and I was just like, holy crap, like that's a big difference. That's the next phase that I want to go into, where is activating those muscle fibers that I haven't been able to use, because I want to get that dense look without giving myself almost a break from doing a crazy amount of weight, but having my body think it's still getting the crazy amount of weight when I train. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but if you use the Neubie, you'll understand. Like, you can make it feel as if you're curling 200 pounds, but you're only curling 50 pounds. But it feels like you're curling 200 pounds. I want to be able to use this next probably like 8 to 10 weeks, and then give myself a little bit of a break and then go back to it. Because I want to see how much muscle fibers I could activate to almost give myself a 3D look.
That's awesome. So we'll get to follow along and see the progress there. You mentioned your elbow. Obviously, we've done some rehab on that as you've been working the Neubie into your routine here. Would that, in the past, would that impair your training? Would that get in the way of your...
How I don't know how I made it through 2018. There were a lot of moments where I wanted to quit. And at the time, I think, my training partners, Stan and Chris Psycho Lewis, who was training us, knew that, because there's a lot of stuff that I couldn't do. It was to the point where I wanted to tap out, several times, and just be like, I just can't do that. But I fight my way through that in 2018, where it was hard, and I wish I could explain to you guys. It almost felt as if it was like right in the joint of my elbow. And it was such an impingement that there were times I was wearing 2 elbow sleeves just to bench.
Wow.
That's how crazy it was. It was like I had to put a smaller sleeve on and put another one on so that it's so tight in order to do a tricep exercise or to do a shoulder press or to do a chest press, so I could have a little bit of comfort. Mm-hmm. And today, after Clay had hooked me up, it was like the first set I was like, okay, I could still feel it. And by the second set, I was doing it without even thinking, oh, you need to make that adjustment where there's no pain on the joint. So now that I know what I need to do, it's all about being coachable and opening up your mind to stuff that can make you better. And, today was one of those experiences of saying, okay, I learned something new. Well, I learned a lot today that I never knew. And just reset. There's going to be a lot of reset going on. So if you guys see me sleeping a lot more, don't mind me. I've been reset. So I've been napping a lot more.
That's right. So we showed him the master reset today, increased that parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system activity.
Napping and sleeping a lot more peaceful.
That's good. With all this work, you got to digest your food, rebuild that, break it down, build that muscle, recover.
I think that's the hardest part. Like, people don't understand the amount of food that a bodybuilder consumes. Over the years, my mom keeps saying 2 things that she's so happy she no longer has to do: feed me or clothe me. Because you don't realize, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was trying to explain, one meal would consist of right now, 6 ounces of ground bison and 6 ounces of steak with 250 grams of rice. And she was like, that's one meal? I was like, yeah, yes, that's one meal. Most people, for them, that's like eating 250 grams of rice per meal is like, they don't even have that much in a day. And to hear you say that's one meal, it's like, wow, that's a lot of food. So imagine eating, breakfast. Right now I'm doing 150 grams of cream of rice with 2.5 scoops of protein powder and some almond butter. That's a lot of food in a bowl. And I finish eating, I'm thinking, man, I can't wait to eat my next meal. And eating 6 of those a day or 7 of those a day, meals like that every day, it's a lot of digestive problem that people end up with, because you consume so much food so frequently that I think sometimes the body doesn't have enough time to actually digest everything. And I'm very thankful I found out about that, how to do that reset, because I know that's something that I'm going to be utilizing a lot more.
Awesome. I think
so. I could, again, from a Pinto to a Ferrari.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm excited. Of course, since you're here for the day in Texas, we're going to take you out for barbecue. So we're going to put that digestive function to a challenge.
Now you guys understood. All you could eat barbecue.
That's right.
Say if I'm 10 pounds heavier tomorrow.
That's where we're going next. So for anybody watching this and listening, if they don't already know you and follow you, is Instagram where you're most active?
Yes, Instagram at Olympia Shawn Rhoden. You guys could find me there every single day, or if you guys in Vegas, stop by the Dragon's Lair.
That's right. Flex Lewis's new state-of-the-art gym, wonderful facility in Las Vegas. We'll just give Flex a shout out, and that's awesome. Thanks for being here, Shawn. It's been a privilege to spend the day with you here. And
thank you. We're going to be here a lot, folks. I think I'm going to come back a couple of times, especially as I get more into shape. I'm not saying I'm not into shape right now, but as I get my beach body back, I think, just want to I'm going to continue to give you guys updates and see the progress as far as the transformation from here until next Olympia.
And we'll come do some content in Las Vegas too.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good ride, and I want you guys to stay through and enjoy it. The best is yet to come.
All right. Amen to that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this extra special episode of the Undercurrent Podcast with Mr. Olympia himself, Shawn Rhoden. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
And goodbye. Thank you so much for listening to the Undercurrent Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date as we release future episodes.